Good evening, everybody, and welcome today for this event organized by the Founder Institute, New Delhi, titled Benefits of Having Access to a Global Community. As you are all aware, Founder Institute is the world's largest pre-seed accelerator based in the Silicon Valley. It operates in over 200 cities around the world and has helped create more than 6,000 startups till date, and has also given funding of over $1.7 billion. And they cumulatively have a value of, how many dollars is that, Janet? Maybe $30 billion, right? And yeah, $35 billion. And it's not just that, there are also 25,000 mentors on the platform around the globe. So there is a lot that's going on in the Founder Institute community. And we thought this would be a great opportunity to talk to some of the stalwarts from our part of the world and bring them here from the Founder Institute family and bring them here to the Delhi cohort founders and prospects to have a look at what it might entail for them if once they get on the chapter. So just a little quick introduction. The FI Delhi chapter took off last year with a vision to convert startup ideas into fundable businesses. It is led by me and Mr. V.K. Gupta, my co-director from the program. Mr. Gupta,
hi.
Just hi. So entrepreneurship is a lonely journey, and typically founders are young men and young minds buzzing with innovative ideas. At FI, we help hone these ideas into sustainable and scalable businesses that can go on get funded and make an impact in the world we live in. We guide them through a process of learning with accomplished mentors and through a series of best practices and tools and processes that have been created through a structured process and best applied to create a great startup. We're extremely happy to share that some of the graduates from our previous cohort have already been funded, and that's a testimony to the fact that the process really works. And actually, I'd like to share that this event is very well timed. It couldn't be better because yesterday, 16 January, was the India National Startup Day. And this was announced by our Prime Minister last year onwards, because 2021 was a year of record funding and a record number of unicorns that got created in the country. And today, India's ecosystem is the third largest ecosystem in the world, behind just US and China, buzzing with talent in millions. We house over 100 unicorns, and we Startup India recognizes over 88,000 startups in the country. And earlier, this was a very big city phenomenon, but now founders have mushroomed across the length and breadth of our nation, from tier 2, tier 3 towns as well. And a whole lot of women that hold key roles as founders, co-founders, and other positions in a decent percentage. I would say about 35% to 40%. The government has obviously also making a lot of regulatory reforms to ease up the way of doing business, reduce compliances, to make it easy for startups to flourish. Industry and individuals have come forth to mentor, fund, and advise them in their journey. So that's a lot about India. But for us at Founder Institute today, I think it's about amalgamation of the best of India with the best of what the West has to offer us. And that's what I think Founder Institute enables you to do. It's about India and the globe. It's about local entrepreneurs and the global community, and how the two can together make the best possible opportunities for our founders. So let me go off and introduce you to two great people from the Founder Institute family who we have here. First, let me introduce to you Chris Foles, a renowned startup advisor, transformation strategist, inspirational speaker, and managing director of the Silicon Valley-based global advisory firm Responsible Solutions. He is from Las Vegas, and you'd be surprised to know that he's joined us at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. And that goes a long way to show his commitment to his work. He's very visible in the Founder Institute family across all chapters, and has had I would say, a very shining career with a lot of ups and downs. But now he's become one of the most sought after strategic advisors, engaging and initiating unique impact-focused go-to-market collaborations around the world. Welcome, Chris.
So honored to be here. There is some ups and downs in my background, but we all have them. But I can tell you it's all ups in India. So thanks for having me today.
It's the downs that make us bounce back, right?
It is.
The higher we go,
the higher we go. Chris on the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
I love it. And
go on, Chris.
I was just going to say 4:30 in the morning, one thing I know in India is that, people work hard, they're dedicated and committed. So I'm just honored to be in the room with such great leaders tonight, no matter what time of the day it is. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Chris, for your time.
Thanks a lot.
And of course, we have our own Janet Todorova. She's the head of expansion at Founder Institute and responsible for creating a whole lot of new chapters for Founder Institute and expanding them year on year, more and more cities. So personally, she also runs 2 chapters in Eastern Europe. One is from FI Sofia and Bucharest. She's joining us from Bulgaria. And she works with a whole lot of early stage founders from the Eastern European region and helps them build the beginnings of their businesses. She's building teams, product traction, and helping them for fundraising. So thank you so much for your presence, Janet, and welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I'm looking forward to take questions from the audience here as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. So welcome. It's a pleasure to have both of you. Most of our attendees today are essentially founders who are either enrolled with us or for the upcoming cohort, or are planning to do so, and clearly maybe on the edge in terms of deciding whether it's the right fit for them and so on. And so it would be great for them to understand what it would mean to participate in the Founder Institute program, and also, how would they benefit as once they become a graduate and become part of this community, what does it really mean for them? Yeah. So let's get started. So let's start with some very basic stuff. What really is the benefit that a FI enrolled founder does? There's just so many accelerators, incubators in India. It's buzzing. Just in one city, Delhi, I think there'll be more than 20, 25, 30 of them. The fact is that today people have a choice to go to many accelerators, but why Founder? And why something that has a global network? And what's the benefit that they have once they are in the program from day one? So who will take that?
Shall I start first?
Yes, Janet.
All you.
All right. So there's so many values I've seen throughout the years, but I guess if I have to name a few of the strongest differentiators of the Founder Institute that I've seen myself working with startups throughout many, many cohorts. Number one, I would say it's our structured approach. So there is no formula how to build a successful company. However, out of the experience of so many founders and entrepreneurs all over the world, we at least know which are the mistakes that you could definitely avoid. There are critical mistakes, for example, around co-founder relationships, equity tables, business models, very basic things, even around branding, design, logo, naming, and so on. So everything we know about startups and how to build them in the 0 to 1 phase is actually structured in our 14-week program. So I worked with other accelerators, partnering up. We're a friendly organization. And what I see when I'm working with them is like they're reinventing the wheel every time they start building a program. Versus in our case, we have been building a structured process for the last 12 years now, almost 13. We had a lot of people go through this program. So based on the data and the experience, we actually have managed to improve this process and iterate many times. And there have been more than 6,000 companies now just created out of this process. That's number one. I guess it's my favorite differentiator. I guess the global network and just being with a global mindset from day one, realizing I'm not building this niche small thing for my people, my city, my country, but it's something that has the potential to be global and to solve global problems. And it's really eye-opening, I would say. And Chris, maybe you can add something from your experience.
It's very interesting. I have the honor of being one of the entrepreneurs in residence. My business partner and I are involved in 31 FI programs. So you get this viewpoint around the world, the difference between the ecosystems and everything. And one thing I notice is around the world, great minds, I think they're in love with the idea of being a startup founder, but they may not know what goes into that, right? We can watch movies and celebrate what happens on the great days when everyone's having victories, but it's on those days where we need to have support structure, are armed with tools to handle the worst days as well, learn how to react to our failures as startups. And one thing I'll be honest, you know, most of the stuff in the startup universe that I'm known for knowing about now, I did not know appropriately until Founder Institute myself. You know, it didn't matter how much work I did around the world or how many startups or leaders I worked with, until you understand the rules of how the startup ecosystems work, how investment conversations work, how to prepare for different audiences, and more importantly, the successful formula that has been repeated over and over. Until you understand that and gain perspective, you really have not had your eyes opened yet. My eyes have been opened by Founder Institute, and it's great places like right here in India where you see a different dynamic. You're able to say, hey, look, here's what India is phenomenal at, and here's their trajectory to change the world. And, you know, if it wasn't for these experiences, whether you're a founder, whether you're a mentor, a leader, whether you're just a guest speaker, anyone that's involved in the FI world adds to this kind of moving, dynamic bit of knowledge that we incorporate every single day. And no place else in the world at all replicates that. And that's what I love.
Wonderfully put. So amazing 2 or 3 takeaways for me. Personally, I think you talked about the content and curriculum, which has been, shaped over 12 years of learnings, and it's really best place to give you the best chance for success. And then you talked about the fluidity of knowledge and, what India has to offer. In fact, a whole lot of Indians are already creating unicorns around the world, and in US especially, a lot of Indians are shining. And I think that door is open for anyone to walk through. And I think all of us must have that kind of vision as we create our own futures and build our own visions and passions. So on that great note, let's move on to say, once we evolve and once they graduate, what else does one have access to? Because when you are in FI, you become part of the family, you are part of that community for life, right? It's not just in the 14-16 week program. So what have you seen founders do once they've graduated, and how have they really taken advantage of the community once they have graduated? Of course, there's the whole funding piece, which we will talk about, which is the big one. But aside from that, what else? Then we'll get to funding later.
I'll start on this. I think there's this interesting fraternity or sorority, we'll call it that, this organization where the startup ecosystem globally is connected, right? And Silicon Valley has historically been the kind of heart of that organization. And as you start venturing out, like even in Founder Institute, you come to some events in the Silicon Valley program. If you're traveling somewhere like Austin, have a place to come and see what's going on. Until you experience all of that from being inside the program, you don't actually realize how much of a tight-knit community the startup ecosystem is. And Founder Institute puts you in that inside 1%. And again, there's no hype here. Yes, I spent my entire life working in politics, but this is the truth. Like, you cannot buy your way into the center of the startup ecosystem globally. You have to put work in, right? You have to show that you understand what you're talking about, that you care, the difference between customers and offers and concepts and all these different things. You need to prove yourself. And Founder Institute gives you a pathway to prove yourself. Now, once you prove yourself there and, graduate, you have success, it's not just about doing work and getting some sort of certificate. I wish it was that easy. It's not. But it prepares you for what happens the day after you graduate. You see, so many people are focused on graduation, which is great, but the world begins again when you graduate, and you're in now this exclusive fraternity and sorority that's not just Founder Institute. Our relationships with places like Startup Grind, Techstars, Startup Weekend. I can go all day long with this. Janet could tell you, we're one of the largest refers to places like Techstars. Our place in the continuum is respected by all the other organizations, which is why our alumni go on to do such amazing things. And one thing a lot of people don't realize is that Founder Institute has been literally, I don't want to say the word breeding ground, but literally the home base for companies being created. You know, it was one of our, I think it was the first cohort that we did, where the company Udemy, the online learning platform, was literally created by two founders who were on their own path. One had grade A, the other one had grade B. Together, they made even a better C, and that became Udemy, which is one of the most widely used platforms in the world. That was something that would not have existed if they didn't cross paths inside Founder Institute, and that carried on forever. And that's the type of thing that I think a lot of people overlook, is that the fastest way to gain entry into something is by putting into work and starting at a place like Founder Institute.
So well said. You know, every time I travel internationally, and I've been to, say, Spain or New York or wherever, I always know that there is a friend in town. And I know there's a Founder Institute chapter, and you can pick them up, you can talk to them. There'll be local directors, there'll be founders, and there's always a friend and a community that you have access to. Yeah. And I'm saying for fun, but yeah, there's a lot of work that you can accomplish from out of it. Janet, you want to add?
I actually use this particular thing even for places where I have not traveled. One of my friends had a medical emergency and he said, okay, I need help in XYZ country. I said, okay, we have a Founder Institute chapter there. We can get in touch with the local directors and see if we can get any help. So yeah, it is a real global community, and people are there to help each other also. That gives a great feeling. Yeah.
I want to add something to this, because it's really something that sounds a little bit abstract when you're in the beginning of your founder journey. But the more you progress, you realize that the only way forward is to actually build a network of friendly actors where you help each other, because most of the things in the startup world you cannot buy. You have to earn them by being great, as Chris said, by doing progress, by helping out. So this is something you learn within the program, and then after you graduate, you basically are enabled to unlock the network. So network is just one value. I would also say that after completing your local program, you become part of the global portfolio, and we have a global team mostly based out of US. Some members are in Europe as well. But basically, they start helping your company on the journey to raising a Series A, Series B, reaching an exit event. So you have at your hand a mix of experts in legal, in finance, people who can help you review term sheets, people who can advise you on equity structure, or like all these important things that you don't necessarily know how to do coming out of a different ecosystem. And I really like this saying, your network is your net worth. So basically, being able to immediately gain access to a network of very many friendly actors, I think it's super valuable. And we, of course, have all the typical benefits like access to discounts and credits and referrals. But
yeah. There's a whole perks package, by the way, and you find that on the website. So from companies like AWS to Microsoft, Dell, to a whole lot of others, there's over thousands and thousands of worth of dollars of free credits that you enjoy, and stuff that you're going to need anyway for your business, and you just get it free because you're part of the community. But I'm going to share a very interesting story that happened in our last cohort, and one of our founders was building something around virtual reality. And since it's so new, he was looking for a little help on the tech, and he reached out through the founder community to somebody who was building VR in Canada. And he was able to then connect with him in one of the FI events, and they kind of exchanged notes. And then he got a lot of tech support from him and a whole lot of understanding in terms of how he has to build his stack. And he was able to refine the experience of the product that he was building because of that connect. So it's amazing how people are able to reach out to others and cross-pollinate ideas and learnings, and use that to, shorten your learning curve, reduce your risk, increase your probability of success. And those are the kind of things that at least I saw that happen personally. And I'm sure there'll be so many more stories like that going around in the world, right?
Oh, absolutely. All sorts of good and bad stories. So, let me see, but it happens all the time. Somebody reaches out and like, hey, I'm going to that place. Can you just connect me, put me in touch with someone? And then amazing things happen.
Yeah.
It's not only about building companies, but also building friendships and whatnot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's talk about the key thing that founders are after. Everybody who comes here says, I don't need anything else. I build everything. Just give me the money and show me the money. So, funding and capital is the key requirement, is the most important thing. And Founder Institute has got a whole lot of avenues to help graduates get funded. There's the funding lab, the select portfolio, VC lab, loyal VC. There's just so many different affiliates and partnerships that we have of different, and which are serving different purposes, but in some way or the other suited for almost everybody, right? If you're really serious and if you can really show traction and prove your idea, then there'll be somebody out there who can help you get funded. So would you like to talk about, something that you've seen happen where people have got funded and how some of these opportunities and funding labs, etc., are helping the cohorts raise capital, and not just in US, but around the world?
I think the investment landscape is wild right now. And, somebody asked in the chat, like, why do some companies get funded so quickly and apparently so easily? I think so many startup founders, first of all, everyone has a bias to their own startup, right? Like you would hope that you would. But those that take the time to not just focus on what gets investors to say yes, but spend time eliminating the things that would cause them to say no. That's where the real game changer is. And what I mean by that is it's about de-risking. So, what you're seeing right now in the landscape is when people are getting investments and everything, is because they cut down the risk factors to investors. That means you have your team in order. You've looked at your competition and proven the case. You have appropriate traction. People ask me all the time, Chris, how do I get my company invested in? Well, be more investable. And believe it or not, that isn't just attached to your idea. There are plenty of companies that have a fairly boring idea that get invested because they solve a rather boring but real problem, right? So it really looks like that. If you want to have the largest success potential for your startup, make sure you solve a problem that's large enough to matter, but small enough for you to prove to your investors that you can solve it, right? And from there, that's what growth is about. That's what scale is about. Start somewhere, prove it, de-risk yourself, eliminate the no's, and that will be the pathway to getting funded. And one other thing I'll say is this: so many people are obsessed with just pure venture capital funding. We see it all over the place. And, that is not the only pathway. By far, there's many more. Russell and I, my business partner, who's one of the leaders of Silicon Valley's Founders Institute program, we have a list of 22 different types of funding pathways, whether it be things like sponsored capital, SBIR in America, which is federal government funding. More important, things like nonprofits. Did you know nonprofits can both donate to your cause, but also invest in your cause, NGOs around the world? So there's all these different pathways. Successful founders focus on finding that lead investor first versus going through a Rolodex and finding a bunch of people to make soft commitments, because that lead investor, that's the biggest form of de-risking that you have as a startup founder, so let's look at some other alternatives outside of just venture funding to get there.
Absolutely, so true. So what are you doing to make yourself investable, and how are you getting that key investor? Yeah. And how likely are you to find that in the Founder Institute world, Janet?
So going back to some of the structures that we try to put in place, because as FI, as an organization, we're not only trying to be the entry point to the ecosystem and to the startup journey, but we're trying to build a structured pathway to becoming a global scalable business. So let's say after graduating a core program, the assumption is that you are now prepared to get out there, start talking to angel investors, other later stage accelerators and funds. Here comes our FI Venture Network. So basically, we are building a kind of a platform where we are enabling people to to find each other, because as you can, I don't know if you can imagine it actually, but investors also struggle to find great startups, great deals that match their mandate, that match their geography or investment thesis and so on. So really putting yourself in front of the right investors is also a difficult thing to do, and then making a good impression and so on. So what we're trying to do with the FI Venture Network is to make sure that you as founders are shown and getting a visibility in front of the right investors that are interested in you as a industry stage, that those investors could not only invest in you, but also help with opening doors. So that's one thing. We have a follow-up program called Funding Lab. This is particularly a success story with FI, because once you go through our core methodology, you kind of learn our ways of doing things, and then continuing into the funding program already with the discipline of like delivering work on time, being very diligent on taking the steps to success. We have great success. I think it's around 85% of founders who enter the Funding Lab program. Of course, they have to fit certain criteria, but they manage to fundraise within the time they are in the program itself. So again, this structured approach is a kind of our secret sauce, and we know it works well. So Funding Lab is another added value. A few years ago, we actually started an internal kind of experimental program with FI called VC Lab, which was an accelerator to launch funds. Now this is a separate company. And basically VC Lab is now out there creating venture capital funds, making sure that there is equal opportunities to find funding all over the world, not just in the most famous places we know. And now we're basically trying to put these two networks together, the VC Lab network of funds and then the Founder Institute portfolio of startups, and just trying to build those close relationships and making sure that we're just doing matchmaking properly.
Yeah. I think that's an amazing statistic. 85% people entering the Funding Lab getting funded is like absolutely amazing. And you know what it does to you once you get funded and credibility, that stamp of approval from a global investor, and what it does to your perception even in the local market and the local investors, the way they start looking at you differently. I think it's a long way. So I would also like to mention over here Loyal VC, and they're like a preferred partner, or we're like a preferred partner for them for soft deals.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of our cohort graduates from the last cohort got funded. A second one's already in active talks right now. So they're absolutely elated with that process, and that kind of validation is really helping them. And also they have access to the Loyal VC network of advisors around the globe. Mm-hmm. And many of them are now talking to global advisors and taking mentorship from them. And I think that's also an amazing opportunity in helping build their journey. Yeah, we see somebody wanting to ask a question, raise a hand. Yes, Selvaraj, over to you.
Yeah, hello. I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with the great, brilliant people over there. So first of all, I just want to thank you and to give the opportunity to speak. Basically, we are from Coimbatore in Tamil Nadu. We are in a startup company. Registered as an Indian startup, DAPP certified company. So basically, we are food engineers to start the company the last year. This is only for 6 months company only. So what we need is actually, we have a very good ideation about our R&D product. So we want that funded supported. We want funded supporting from investors, because we don't have any idea about it. But we have a very good interaction about our theories and studies and validation and verification for our product. But what is the main question is, how should I go to the next stage, or how should I move on to the company product and developments? So in that, I need a support, I need a clarification about expert from your guys. From the answers.
Ranis, if I may suggest you, the best option is register for our program, and
sir.
it will convert the whole company into an investable company, investable idea,
Yes, sir.
and doors will be open for all kinds of investors, and
Okay.
you will really appreciate the journey as well as the
Yes, sir.
result. That I can
Yes, sir.
promise you. Now, having
I-
said that, I leave it to Janet, Chris, and Anjali to add on to that.
Yeah,
Yes,
let me just echo that. You know, it's so many people are like, of course, we're all here from Founder Institute. We want you to go into our programs, but it's not because of anything beyond that. I know it's going to help you. You see, like the amount of things I did not know about the actual process before FI is vast, right? And I mean, I worked for presidents of the United States. I didn't know any of this stuff here. But the truth of the matter is, what FI is better at than absolutely anyone in the world is having a proven roadmap. And road mapping is such an important thing
Okay.
because, you know, for every path that you may go down, there's an alternate path. There's a different way. Other people have done it a different way. Somebody's done it exactly that way. There are proofs of concept all over. But one thing that's very important is a lot of us like to think that we have traction. A lot of us like to think that we have, you know, proven our customer validation. I can tell you right now, my business partner, Russell, can tell within 5 minutes if a company is going to be successful because we're able to determine how well they know their customer. I guarantee you're missing something. And it's going to be something that's going to be solvable when you compare yourself to everyone else that's in the process. And when I say you're missing something, I don't mean any disrespect at all. If you already had it, you'd already be funded, right? I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. It's fairly cut and dry in that matter. Yeah. So I look forward to it. In Founder Institute, we have these things called office hours where people like myself, Janet, everyone on the panel today spend time with you weekly, going back and forth. And this is the thing, it's tough love. I can hold your hand until you're blue in the face, and that's not doing you any favors, right? I'll be nice, of course, but I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'm going to tell you how it is in each one of those sessions. That's the greatest gift. You know, my mom always told me when I was younger that if I was ever going to have a chance in life, I needed to surround myself with people that are smarter than I am, right? And there's every week when we have our global leadership calls for Founder Institute with these great people on the call here as well. You know, I'm in a room of people that are smarter than I am at what they do. And you'll find that every single week in your Founder Institute history and life with us. And that's the truth. And the network in India is unbelievable for Founder Institute. It truly, truly is. But the network around the world, you may find out that the answer is somebody that's doing exactly what you're doing in a non-competing market already has the roadmap for you. We will help make that connection. And I think that is the key thing here. Getting in a program, understanding where you're at, because you can't determine where you're going until you realistically know where you're at today.
Yes, sir. I can actually, it's good actually. But by the Janet ma'am, actually, previously Janet ma'am spoke about the labs. So we want to connect the labs because we are actually very depth knowledge into the product, especially for fermentation of prebiotic and probiotic for the nutritions. So yes.
So Selvaraj, let's kind of cut it there. I got the point. You're saying you're looking for funding. Chris very clearly made the point that you've got to understand that you've got to be fundable. What is it that makes you investable? Now, Janet talked about a funding lab. To get into a funding lab, you have to cross a few criteria. You have to have traction. You have to, there'll be 10 questions you need to answer. And if you've not checked all of them, you'll not get into the lab. Once you get into the lab, the chances of funding are high, yes. But in order to solve all of that, remember, it's not so much about the money. The money comes later. It's about what you're doing to build your business, to, you know, solve the problems for your customers. How well is that understood? And believe you me, he's right when he says, you think you've got it all, but when you actually get down into do the work, you'll realize, oh my God, there's so much more you need to do. And I think that's where the structured process helps. When you get into the program, we take you step by step into that process of one by one knowing what you need to do, what you need. It's not a learning program, it's a doing program. We give you assignments, you go back and you do the work. When you do the work, you automatically reflect and you will realize, oh my God, I didn't look at it like this. I need to do this. I need to go back and review my model or review something or the other. It'll be whether it's something in your ecosystem, but it'll force you to think and it'll force you you to rethink, and you will start to pivot. And at the end of that rigor of 14 weeks, you'll realize you've come a long, long way. Then answering those 10 questions on the right side would be so much more easier to get you into a funding lab. So don't think that there are shortcuts where you can straight jump into a lab and get some money. No, you have to do
not at all,
hard
ma'am.
work.
And
No, sorry, ma'am, not at all, right?
Charles,
Because we actually, yes, ma'am.
Charles, if I may stop you here, my request, my dear friend, is I'll give you my number. We can have a chat separately. Let us not hijack this whole program right now. You have got the initial answers from my panelists. Let us have a chat offline, okay?
Yes, sir. So finally, I'll just tell. Now I understood the program, and now I understood the structure of the things. So definitely, I will move on to the stage which required for the participating of the potential.
Great.
Sure.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
Janet, this is going to be the biggest premise with almost everybody. You know? So do you want to add to this, notwithstanding his question, but this is really the foremost thing in every founder's mind.
Every founder, one
Yes,
single
absolutely.
thing.
You know, a funny thing is, as part of our sequence of events that we usually organize with our chapter, there is an alumni panel. So we invite people who already went through the program. And when we ask them the question, what was the most valuable thing, or what did you need, and so on, nobody says funding. But in the beginning of the program, everybody says, oh, I have an idea. And then the next thing I need is funding. However, in between, there is this black box of things that requires years of work, hours of efforts, lots of mistakes. And the thing is, you only realize what was necessary once you go through it and look back. Unfortunately, it's one of those things in life that you really, even if we tell you, like, first, this is going to happen, you will talk to this person and that's going to happen and so on. But until you experience it and actually take the learnings, very few people realize it. It's my observation. So in a way, you have to just take a leap of faith and see, the facts out there, like how many startups went through this program, what's their survival rate, what's the statistics showing you. Obviously, you're trying to send messages to funds and investors, you don't even get an answer. That's a clear sign. Obviously, you're not there yet, and so on. And I think Chris shared this very useful link, the benchmark. We are trying to constantly summarize the knowledge we have in the network and kind of open source it to everyone. Just a few criteria. You have to be full-time on this. You need a team. You need to earn money already with the product you think you're solving a problem with. This is just a minimum, and there are so many other small things. And then you can go out there and try to fundraise.
Let me say this about those benchmarks. This isn't some hypothetical thing that we sat in like some back room and came up with these numbers to intimidate. These are based on actual facts, actual experience sets, actual numbers based on how it's done in the real world. You see, and this is the one thing I'll say, everyone comes to me and is like, Chris, I've got this amazing thing. I'm so different. We're going to change the world. You know what? I'd be one to tell you, even the person that just talked about probiotics and all this stuff, we have no less than a dozen companies that we advise that are in the probiotic space. You know what I'm saying? And that's nothing wrong with it. One of the greatest things that you learn in Founder Institute is, you know what? It's actually scary to be different entirely. You better hope that there's somebody out there that has proven the market, because the cost of getting a company up into a brand new market is very, very expensive, very risky. So when people go around here, like, listen, we got the most amazing thing, no one else has it. Trust me, you just canceled out 50% of investors by saying that. But you wouldn't know that. You wouldn't. I didn't know that. I'm a politician. I can talk to anybody about anything. I had to learn how to keep my mouth shut, even though you can't really tell in an event like this. But I had to learn these things. There are rules to being different. There are rules to changing the world.
Yeah.
So rightfully said, Chris. We have one more gentleman who wants to talk. I'm allowing him, Gaurav Verma. Gaurav, go ahead and ask your question, please.
Hello. I'm not sure if I can turn my video on, but thank you for taking my question. I was actually accepted into the Founders Institute when you first launched in India a couple of years. Am I audible, by the way?
Yes,
Yes, you are audible, Gaurav.
Okay, great. Yeah, so our startup was actually accepted into the FI program when they first launched in India maybe a couple of years ago. We just felt it wasn't the right time for us because we were still strategically aligning. We have since pivoted, and now I have a co-founder in San Francisco, myself in India. We're in the, you can say, higher education. We're creating a higher education marketplace, matching universities to students and creating a academic and career pathway for students. I have a two-part question. The first question is, how could we be part of the program given our separate geographic locations?
That happens all the time, right? And somebody else actually asked a question as well about being a non-tech entrepreneur starting a tech company. You know, one of the greatest things is a lot of our teams are all over the world. One company that we work with right now, some founders are in the GCC, the rest are in the US. Nobody's on the same time zone. Luckily, mentors and people will work with you 24 hours a day. I mean, it's like 4 a.m. now. I speak somewhere tomorrow at 1 a.m. The key is actually making sure that you know, I would rather see you have a partner that's around the world and it plays a role in there. There's no rules against this, you know, but it's up to you as a company to work effectively with the program. At Founder Institute, you know, sometimes your co-founder may pitch versus just you. There are some time zone changes there, but you also may find out that you'd be a different time zone than your investor as well. Your investor could be in Australia. So you better get used to being part of the global ecosystem. Luckily, in Founder Institute, there's pathways for all of this. This is not unheard of. This happens quite regularly. You will most likely meet somebody else that has an out-of-country founder in there as well. You know, so it's about actually being committed to the outcomes and realize this. You're in, you said interesting things. You said you got education, you got marketplace, you got all these different things. Let me just give you some advice. You just basically have 5 different categories of investment right there, right? So the moment you say the word marketplace, the moment that you say that you're in education, the moment that you're in, say, look, these are all different buckets, different investors. You're going to learn this in Founder Institute, which is great. To some of them, you'll be canceled. The moment you say something like marketplace, people are scared right now of investing in marketplaces, right? You know, for whatever reason. But you see, it sounds like you have something beyond just a marketplace, and you also have a founder that's across the world in San Francisco. So there's a different group of investors in San Francisco for marketplaces and education than there may be in New Delhi or in India. So you perhaps have twice the chance of being localized to a geographic group of investors because you do have that. So there are plenty of positives to that equation, you know, for certain.
Got you, Chris. Thanks for the answer. My question, okay, if I just elaborate, when I was first accepted, well, I was a founder back then, so it was but when we were first accepted into the FI India program, we were told by email, we got to pick a location. And so since I was based in Bangalore, it was Bangalore, but it was the first year. So you're trying to say that that's no longer a limitation. I could take advantage of the mentors and the advisors in the Indian ecosystem, and my co-founder, we as a company could take advantage of meeting with advisors, mentors such as yourselves in the US.
I'm a mentor in India. I'm a mentor in Ahmedabad, New Delhi. I can go 3 or 4 different programs, but it's not just me, right? There are other global mentors in the New Delhi program. But really what it is if your company is going to be doing in the business in the region that you're in, right there, without any doubt, that's where you kind of want to be. Founder Institute is very smart. They've localized jurisdictional documents. They've kind of came up with all these solutions, which makes it much stronger. But then looking at India is a popular place to invest in right now. You'll be one of 1 billion people in San Francisco doing the same thing, not actual numbers, but you may be one of a smaller group of people in India doing it. And for those that are de-risking their investment portfolios away from, let's say, Silicon Valley for a moment, you're going to have a higher likelihood of success. And I'll personally meet with you in office hours through the FI New Delhi program. And then I will look, if there's not a mentor in the program that you may need, I'll work with the leaders here to bring one of them in for you. That's not a problem. You know, we truly have one of the most cosmopolitan global mentorship crews in the world, and there's more than 25,000 of us, right? So I'm a global entrepreneur in residence myself. You know, I'm based in the San Francisco and Silicon Valley market. I live in Las Vegas and I'm mentoring in your program here in New Delhi to give you some perspective. But we're also involved in 31 other programs. So working with people like me, you can kind of get the breadth of the diversity. Same thing with Janet in Eastern Europe, you know, which she's also a mentor in programs around the world. And I've learned a tremendous amount from her myself, right? So it's one of those things that's the different, unique thing. FI used to be localized entirely. And then the pandemic came and, you know, I was probably one of the first people a little bit eccentric about it, where I started mentoring in Africa and then I went everywhere else. Now there are so many people from the US that are mentoring where you're at. You probably have a better chance in India than you would in San Francisco Founder Institute program.
Yeah.
That's just me, my opinion. And I was a leader there and the top mentor in the San Francisco program, to put it in perspective.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chris,
I
and
think
that
very
is
well
one
said.
big benefit of being connected to a global community of FI.
Yeah. So to answer your questions very, very specifically, you don't need to be in Bangalore or in Delhi or in California. Post-COVID, most of the programs are virtual. We log in every Tuesday, 3 hours, and you have office hours, which are on Zoom. So it's a virtual village. We're all connected at all points in time. You can join any one program that you think is better suited to your business and your market. Any one of you founders can join in. The other one can come in at another point in time to represent them if you're not there, and so on. The program continues and gives you the actual and the same value or more value. And as Chris said, your advisors can be from anywhere around the world.
Great, thank you very much. I've got one follow-up question. Is it possible to ask it, or are we out of time?
Go ahead, Gaurav, ask it.
Okay, so we're currently doing a product market fit with our pivot to understand the FI program better. And I do understand it's basically questioning our own assumptions, making sure we're interviewing our customers, getting customer validation, so on and so forth, leading up to the point where you've got a business plan. But let's say we've done that and we're looking for product market fit. Does FI have relationships in place, or does FI facilitate relationships through its partners to help us find design partners or customer validation?
I got a question for you. You keep mentioning product market fit. How much revenue do you have right now in this pivot?
No,
Probably none.
No, none.
Yeah, you're not at product market fit phase at all, right? You know, you have product validation, customer validation, market validation. You have all these things. Product market fit is something that's generally done with investor dollars, right? Unless you're bootstrapping this, you're funded yourself. There's no way you can prove your product market fit. And that's a good thing, because when people fund your growth stage of the company, or perhaps your scale stage, they're funding based on the fact of discovering and exploiting your product market fit, right? So chances are you're a little bit earlier on, you know, when it comes down to it, in terms of probably product validation. And really what it boils down to is, yes, FI does a lot of this. My nerd business partner, you know, he generally speaks at the customer discovery sessions in there. And, you know, we truly believe that before you spend 1,000 hours chasing investors, you need to be spending 1,000 hours doing customer discovery. And in that bucket is all of your answers to get where you're at. And I love people that pivot. You know, I'm 11-time founder. I've exited, I've done all these things, but I'm like a walking pivot machine. I come from politics. So chances are the timetable of some of the work that you need to do perhaps has already been done with your pre-pivot stage. And then the reason why you pivoted is based on some of those answers and everything. Founder Institute is phenomenal. We have worksheets and programs and all sorts of tools to help you realistically identify where you're at. But what I like here is that you're doing actions that are kind of later down the pathway now, which means you understand them. Founder Institute will help you cut down the amount of time in making sure you're focusing on the right thing, because it truly is staged. And diligence would call you out for this anyway, because they'd be like, listen, how do you have product market fit and you haven't even put your product into the, how can you be testing for something without 1,000 reviews telling you this sucks or this is great, right? Because that's when you start adjusting your product to fit the market, right? Luckily though, where you're at is probably more fundable than where you think you are.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, so that's the reason we're looking to work with design partners. So we're not at product market fit. We're looking for product market fit. We have a product, we're pivoting the product. Now we're talking to university leaders to find product market fit let's say 5 or 10 design partners, that's it. So that's where
We
we're
make these
at
connections all
moment.
the time, my friend. So if you're looking for
Okay.
UX designers and all this, just like you may find out somebody in the cohort has all of that stuff, beautiful, this, that, the other, but doesn't have what you have. And they end up being a co-founder. In our health tech program right now, one of the founders ended up being the CEO for another person's company and brought their entire UX development team, right? So we have this. We also have a system in the back on FI's website where it's listing all the people that are looking for jobs and stuff, many of which work for equity positions, all sorts of the dream scenario that you want. We have it. We've been there. We've done it. We've seen it all.
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate the
Thanks, Gaurav. And if you're in the
Thank you,
program, if
Gaurav.
you choose the Delhi program, there are enough and more designers that we can put you in touch with in this ecosystem. Yeah. Okay, so actually the next question was going to be about global mentorship and advising. And I think Chris has already spoken a lot about it. Janet, would you want to add something to that? I mean, founders from your chapter across or where you're mentoring around the other chapters, what is the kind of value you see that's happening through this global mentorship and advising?
I think one unique thing about the mentors we have at the FI network is most of them are entrepreneurs themselves, people who started companies. So in the very early days of your company, you don't really need this expert that is nichely qualified to analyze your, I don't know, finances or to speak about design or naming, branding, and so on. We kind of see a bigger value in people who are generalists, who have been founders themselves and went through the struggle, because in the early days of building a company, you don't really hire experts for every specific task in your company, but you actually do it yourself in the beginning. You delegate when you know that something is impossible for you to be done, or it's just cheaper compared to your time. So I believe this is super valuable because you meet other entrepreneurs who have been through the same journey, and they are quick thinkers, giving you shortcuts, giving you quick solutions, automated solutions on things that would otherwise a consultant tell you to approach in a different way. So that to me is super valuable. And also the other aspect is those people who are founders and come to mentor, they are great also with opening their own network for you. So it happens many times with our own cohorts that I've seen, founders who have already kind of succeeded, maybe exited, or just are well off. They start doing small angel investments, and Founder Institute is a perfect place for them to have exposure in the early days of a young company. And for them, knowing the FI Robust program is, creating solid companies, for them, it's a validation if you go through the process and survive. So it's I think of the mentor network also as a network to open doors for you in terms of investment, partnerships, and so on.
So one of the questions that we get asked, Janet, is and Chris, is that the program has 2 tracks, and there are both kinds of founders. We have the early stage guys, and then we also have the guys who are at growth stage, who have some amount of product validation, or at least an MVP established. And we constantly ask this question that who is it going to be better tailored to? And, am I going to benefit? Is it for me? Is it for them? And therefore, should I or should I not join? That's a, very valid question in people's minds. What would you say to that?
I can give you the typical answer I kind of created myself throughout the years. And it's like, first, most of the people question whether they're even a good fit for an accelerator. So if you don't have customers who pay you for the thing that you're building, and they can, let's say in the beginning, pay you with their time, meaning I'm using your product. So let's say it could be some kind of freemium scenario. And if you don't generate any revenue, and you have this recurring way of working with your customer, and they do certain steps and they pay you and then they come back. So if you don't have this, you're definitely a good fit for an accelerator. And then in our case, we have these 2 tracks. One is designed more for idea stage people. So let's say if you haven't done research, if you don't know your market, your competitors, what's the landscape around you, and most importantly, if you haven't talked to any people who are potential customers who would give you feedback about the problem you're trying to solve, then you are most probably a good fit for the launch track. The growth track is usually for founders who have done a little bit of work already. Maybe they've reached the stage that they've also created some kind of prototype. And this was, of course, exposed to real users, because it's very wrong to think that because you've spent hours or thousands of dollars on developing an app or some kind of product, this doesn't mean that this has any value. That doesn't mean that it solves a problem, and it doesn't mean that it will have any customers. So these two tracks are very similar. I think the approach is different for the growth track, with the assumption that you are a little bit advanced, but then let's go back and do the checks to make sure that you're not missing anything important. But the outcome of those two tracks in the end of the program should be the same. You have to become an investable company, checking all the boxes. And we know which are the boxes. So that's the thing.
Jen said it perfectly well. Let me just add this to the equation. There is no point lying about where you're at, right? And there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's no more glory to be in growth stage than it is to be in the launch stage. Let me tell you why. The startup life cycle is a journey, not an event. There are specific investors that will only invest in people that are in launch stage, right?
Yeah.
Pre-MVP, because they want to put money in because they're either love risk or they love the opportunity of a much higher reward being the earliest ones in. There are some people that say, listen, without I'm not paying for your prototype. I'm not paying for your MVP. I have a stack of decks this thick of people that are already in the market in the thing that you don't even have them listed on your competition slide, and they're your direct competitors. So it's important to actually be where you're at and be honest with yourself. And, talking to the leaders of the program, there's no point. It's impossible to lie about your traction. There was somebody that was just facing federal charges right now in the US that literally conned JP Morgan into believing that she had more than 1 million customers. She literally generated 1 million fake customers, and they didn't discover it until acquisition time, but they will discover it. I can tell you right now, her bridge is burned in the startup world forever. So, it's always important to be honest where you're at. There are investors for you, special advisors, special mentors. There's no judgment in the equation. The only judgment comes from people that believe there's something that they're not, right? You will be judged for that because it's so apparent. It's not personal. It's just the reality of the situation.
Sure. So there's a question in the QA which says that we raise funds basis how large the TAM is, the total available market. But by the time we get to the product market fit, the TAM is only a fraction of that number, initial number. What are your views on that? That's true, right?
Yeah, I would say that people that rate, first of all, there's some people that don't believe in the TAM down model anyway, right? There are some investors, it's like, I don't care what your TAM is, that has no bearing on it. Here's some positive news on this equation. Your total addressable market, when you're looking at total available market and everything, this number may be huge. The whole point of the investor is for you to grab your serviceable market, your addressable market, right down here at the bottom. If they thought, first of all, most likely your TAM is off. I almost be willing to guarantee that it's off. People think there's something that they're not. The smartest thing is to be accurate there. The smaller the number is at the bottom is still going to make money for somebody, right? There are some people that only invest in people that have serviceable markets in the billions, but there are some people that only want to work with people when their target is 1,000 customers. You can be a unicorn with 1,000 customers if you have the right company, right? So I don't really see that many people in it used to be that they would base things on this when people were just writing blank checks, like, look, if they have a big number up here, let's write them a big check because then we'll get big results. Then what they realize is that there's 2 billion competitors in that top bucket. And these guys had nothing special when it came down into their product validation. So you're going to get your mind changed a lot about what you think investors look at as this. Again, take the advice I said earlier. It's a market that's large enough to matter, right? So even that small market down in your attainable audience, that's probably large enough to matter. And it's something that you and your company need to be able to service and solve. And if you can't start there and prove that up, even if the number's smaller than you think appealing, well, then you're never going to be able to get to the growth stage and scale stage. So I'm happy to get in the FI program. I'll put you in office hours with somebody that is super loves the whole tam down approach, and then somebody that absolutely hates it. And they will give you two different tales of why this matters. And then we can make that decision ourselves. Is that the most investable part of your deck?
That's a very interesting answer and a very
Yeah.
relatable one. So I think that we can take one more question before we wind up. I think somebody raised their hand, right? Sure.
Yeah, Anjali, we have Mr. Hari Rastogi, who is asking a very nice question. He says, how can we connect with the relevant entrepreneurs, alumni of FI from across the world? Can we connect with them during the pre-seed accelerator program or after completing that? So
Yeah,
he's seeking an answer whether he can connect with them before the program ends or only after graduation.
So it becomes significantly easier to connect with fellow founders after the program ends, because we then add you to our Facebook groups and the communities, and you get access to the portfolio team and just ask them for help. But one way to also meet others is once you start the program, on your dashboard, on your profile, you will have a selected list of events that you have kind of invite-only access to. So these events are not public and not available for people who are applicants or just random, but only for people who are part of the FI network. So we try to do at least a couple of events per month that are focused on the founders. Part of our network. You can have formats such as pitch events, so you can actually join, practice your pitch. Then we do air meets, networking tables, and then you sit together virtually with other founders. You exchange, your issues, your ideas. Another format is we usually do this so-called venture trailblazer event series where we invite the top speakers. So we had the general partner of Sequoia Ventures from Silicon Valley a few months ago, and now we will have Tim Draper. So those are again exclusive, and again have a follow-up networking session after the keynote speaker. So you actually can again connect with founders globally, mentors as well, and so on. So, and of course, you can always go out there on LinkedIn and search for founders who have that on their LinkedIn profile, and just reach out and say, hey, I'm in the program, I want to say hi, let's connect. And that's also...
We have these amazing founder showcases type scenario where you'll get interviewed by somebody like Martine, the entrepreneur in residence in the FI corporate headquarters, or Dustin, one of our team. And really what it is, when you stand out, they mentioned something like Loyal VC earlier, which is a phenomenal VC in Toronto. And realize the only way to get funded by a company like that is graduating Founder Institute or graduating INSEAD business school and being referred to by your director. Now, throughout the year, organizations like that were directly affiliated with, they have events as well. What you'll find out is I was just at the Consumer Electronics Show judging startups for the South Korean government, and I ran into no less than a dozen founders and advisors and mentors from the FI ecosystem just interacting there. It truly is like a club, a secret society, with the only thing that's not secret about it is the success we've had throughout the years, right? So the truth of the matter is there's opportunities right away. Take advantage of the global events. You will meet mentors that you never knew existed. You'll meet other founders in that equation. And it's fun. It truly is fun, right? So it's not like one of these things where, I don't know if I should show up. I don't look right, or I don't know if I don't have all my words appropriate. I stumble over so many words. I'm a normal person too. I didn't know an AMA meant ask me anything until about 6 months into mentoring. I'm like, why is Founder Institute constantly doing events with the American Medical Association? Then I realized it was ask me anything. And there are so many of these opportunities where you will cross paths with other founders. And some mentors do group office hours. And sometimes these group office hours, like Russell and I, will do them, and there'll be people from different regions in the same office hour, not just one cohort, which is amazing because then you're getting feedback from a mentor with a company that you didn't even know existed across the planet that may have a similar model than you. And that may be a collaboration partner for you moving forward. So we will create those relationships just by proxy of existing.
That's very well said. I think I love what you just said. So as you can see, guys, this is a great place where we create great results, wonderful success, but we have fun doing it, right? And I think on that note, we've overshot time. So I'm going to kind of wind down now and thank Janet and Chris for their valuable inputs and amazing time for us. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Absolute pleasure to speak with you. I'm sure it's inspiring for people. There are some who are writing, we're delighted. We love this conversation. Send the link to the video. Guys, for all of you, this link is going to be posted on LinkedIn tomorrow. So you can go and access it and have a look at it and hear it as many times as you want, back and forth again and again. So thank you to the audience as well for joining us today. I'm sure you enjoyed this conversation and taken away a lot of insights. And if you're still on the edge, guys, reach out, let's talk, and let's close this. So let me remind you, the applications for the New Delhi cohort are now open. And if you are still, sitting at that concept stage or early stage or growth stage or whatever stage you think you are at, well, it's time now to go and become serious about it. Take this idea forward, convert it into a business model, and make it investable. And we're going to help you do that. Yeah, log into fi.co, register yourself, and let's talk on a one-on-one basis. Please feel free to reach out to either me or Mr. VK Gupta, my co-director. You'll find us on LinkedIn, and you'll also find us on fi.co. So with that, thank you so much once again. Bye-bye to all of you. Have a wonderful evening ahead. And thank you. Any last words, Janet, Chris, before we shut this down?
I just want to say, if you have an idea, this is the best investment you can do. Spend these 3-4 months of your life, go through the program, and you will have a clear answer. Is this something worth doing for the next, let's say, 5-10 years? So just take the action.
I love that advice. My thing is this: so many people, to all those people that think you're different, here are the rules to be different. Never forget where you came from. Never lose sight of where you're going. And as opposed to focusing on what makes you different, take a moment, look around the world, look around your cohort, look around the ecosystem, and find things that make you the same as other people, because that's going to be your pathway to success, not just what makes us different, but what makes us the same. Thank you.
Well said. Thanks a lot, Janet. Thanks a lot, Chris. Thank you, Anjali. Thank you, all the attendees. It was a wonderful event. And Janet, Chris, I really look forward. When do we meet again on one such event?
Whenever you ask, my friend.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
It was great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Guys, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Bye.